Hello everyone, this is Defense Politics Asia, and this is the summary for the day of 440 for the 9th of May. 9th of May. So let's start out with the biggest news, which is actually the Ukrainians have launched an offensive. It's basically a renewed offensive, this time around at the southern part of Bakhmut front. So the Ukrainian forces have attacked towards the west of Klishchiivka. So this is Klishchiivka, the famous Klishchiivka, where the Ukrainians actually held previously. The Wagner forces made a lot of effort to capture it. Now the Ukrainians are now on the counter-offensive and pushing in this way, and they are currently fighting along the canal. There's this canal that going through here. Information is coming from Remelin and Deep State UA. Deep State UA is a pro-Ukrainian source. Remelin is a pro-Russian source. The Deep State UA reported that the 3rd Assault Brigade is seen in the footages attacking the west of Klishchiivka, and then Remelin actually gave more information, because Deep State UA actually simply reporting based on the information the video shows. Remelin, based on his sources, reported that the Wagner is trying to prevent a Ukrainian breakthrough in this area. So he said that there is the Ukrainians did not really had a bridgehead, and then basically the fighting is still ongoing, heavy and bloody, and along the canal, and also partly there's fighting on the eastern part of the canal, and the Wagner is the only force that is currently fighting on this flank, and they are trying to push back the Ukrainian forces. So this is exactly what is happening. The Ukrainians are attacking, and the Wagner forces was sent in to hold the line with some kind of a salient somewhere. Currently the fighting is still ongoing. The Ukrainian Defense Ministry simply reported fighting at towards Stupovsky and towards Ivanivsky, which is very typical of the Ukrainian Defense Ministry's report. Basically, no one can corroborate this information. No one actually knows what the Russians are doing in this area here. And over in Bakhmut city itself, fighting is reported in the area of the Peremogha cinema. So Peremogha cinema is actually here, and the Russian forces is currently attacking through the high-rise building. And information is coming from Remelin. They say that there is battle in the high-rise building, which is very difficult, and there is serious fighting for the Peremogha cinema. And then in a different post they also repeated the same thing. And yeah, so this is currently what's happening over at the Citadel area of the Ukrainian forces. So Citadel area is actually this high-rise building area, which I call the Citadel. And then there is this final line of defense, which is actually another line of defense actually along here, where the Russians are currently focusing their effort on. Fighting is also ongoing over here in the Olympic School region, and they also in the same source by Remelin 21, the pro-Russian source, they also reported fighting towards the last line of defense, which is actually, as I mentioned, this is the so-called the last line of defense, which the Russians currently is attacking further away from the Citadel. The Citadel is actually here, and because it's high rise, the Russians avoided fighting from this direction, because the Ukrainians could attack them. So what they do is that they attack further away. So this is what the Russians are doing, and the fighting here is exclusively by the Wagner forces. Over in the northern flank, in the Bakhmut front, fighting is reported towards Nikivka, according to Remelin, and the fighting here is actually mainly by the Wagner forces, but the forces that is in this position is actually a mix of Wagner and the Military of Defense forces. And there is also fighting reported just on the southern part of the Sivers front at towards Fedorivka and towards Rozdolivka. Information is also coming from Remelin 21, and they say that the Russian forces managed to capture a few trenches and advance towards Rozdolivka. So this comes after the Ukrainians previously launched an attack on Sako Ivaseti, and they managed to come to this line. So it's a bit unusual that the Russian forces kind of totally ignore it and actually fight northwards towards Rodolivka and Fedorivka. So we will continue to monitor and see what is the situation is like, because there's a severe lack of information around this area. Both the Russians and the Ukrainian sources are either withholding information or literally nothing is happening. So yeah, so a lot of operational silence currently in the information space, because the both sides is trying to preserve the secrecy of their operations, because they're both kind of waiting on each other. The Ukrainians are supposed to launch an offensive, but they're not so sure as well, and the Russians are holding back. They're trying to not to do much things and waiting for the Ukrainians to move first. So since we are already at the Sivas front, we are not at the Sivas front. This is Sivas, and the fighting is reported at Bilohorivka, with the Russians attacking, according to the Ukrainian Defense Ministry. There is not much information based on previous information that we have. The fighting is actually from the south or the southeast towards Bilohorivka. The fighting here might have Chechen forces within it, the Bakhmut units. But take that with a pinch of salt. Who knows, that is actually misinformation or wrong information. And moving on into the Kupiansk-Sviatové front. At the Kupiansk-Sviatové front, there is a very limited amount of things seems to be happening. Shelling is being reported at Stemakivka, according to the Russian Defense Ministry. The Ukrainian Defense Ministry says that it is actually the Russians conducting offensive operation to improve tactical positions. So it's basically skirmishes, tactical fighting, and Russians shelling. So they both somewhat corroborated each other. And the other side, we have fighting reported at Masyutivka, according to the Ukrainian Defense Ministry. So Masyutivka haven't seen fighting for some time already. The Russians seems to have only just restarted their interest on Masyutivka. Not much to know about this. So we'll continue to monitor. As you can see, very little things is happening over here. And moving away from there into the Avdiivka front. At the Avdiivka front, we have fighting only reported in the Pervomaisky region and Nevelsky. Information is coming from Myro Shinikov, the pro-Ukrainian source. They say that fighting is within Pervomaisky, and also that there is a push towards Nevelsky. However, not much is known. The Kremlin say that half of the Pervomaisky is actually under Russian control, and the Ukrainian forces hold the western part of the village, but not much is known. Basically, as far as my understanding goes, this entire area is just full of trench lines. So one example of how it looks like is actually in this more updated picture of the Pisky region. If you look at the Pisky region, you can see all the trenches that is lining throughout, sneaking throughout the entire village. Looks like an ant nest. As far as I can tell, it looks like an ant nest, and these trenches just stretches on and on and on, even into this area here. You can see, and this is the Pisky region. You can see this just look like an ant nest. You can just imagine ants crawling through them. And this side is already the old satellite image. You can see the one side is actually totally destroyed, the other side still looks decent. And so Pervomaisky is going to look entirely like this Pisky region. It's just full of trench lines, and it's just very, very hard to capture. Anyway, moving away from the Avdiivka front, we go into the Donetsk front. At the Donetsk front, we have the traditional fighting at Marinka, according to the Ukrainian Defense Ministry, with the Russians continue to try to push and capture the rest of the western part of Marinka. And over at Preshestivka and Zerotoniva, according to the press chief of the Vostok group of forces on the Russian side, there is some skirmishes happening around south of Zolotaneva. So basically, they engage a Ukrainian vehicle here, and at Preshestivka is similar. They say that they actually launch anti-tank guided missiles at armored vehicles near Preshestivka. So basically there is it's not really offensive action. Basically, it's just some skirmishes. So it does shows that the Ukrainians are actually trying to move a bit closer to the front line, and then they got engaged by the Russian forces. And the same thing happens over here at Blahoddatny. So the Russian name is actually Octyabr, and there is also some Ukrainian forces getting engaged around here. Basically, it's just skirmish, nothing of an offensive assault operation sort. What kind of English is that? Nothing of an offensive assault operation sort. Yeah, I repeated the exact same thing. So anyway, there's nothing over to report over at the Zaporizhia line. The Ukrainian forces are still waiting. I think they're waiting for the orders to go on the offensive, or they're waiting to get killed by missile strike or artillery strike. Either way, there is artillery battles across all the front line, all the way from Kherson to Zaporizhia, Donetsk, Bakhmut, FEDORIVKA, Kupiansk, Crimea, even the border along Belgorod and Kursk and the Bryansk region, all across the Russian Ukrainian border, there are exchanges in artillery shelling or artillery battles. Limited, maybe not so heavy. A lot of them are just mortar attacks. So while I don't report on them because it's generally not important, but just do note that along the entire contact line, there's always some kind of skirmish going on. Small, firearms or artillery shelling or mortar shelling is a norm. So it's a war. So these are just normal stuff. So anyway, I think I covered everything, and I think I did indeed cover everything. So this is the summary for the day of 440 for the 9th of May. For those that are watching on YouTube, subscribe if you are not subscribed. Press the like button, and I'll see you in the next update.